The massive crystal towers of Centauri Prime stretched high into the purple sky. Inside the biggest tower, creatures from all over the galaxy had come together for their monthly meeting. These beings looked nothing like humans. Some were made of living crystal, others were pure energy floating in the air, and some had bodies that seemed to shift and change like liquid metal. Ambassador Kreltos was the leader of one of the most powerful groups in the galaxy, called the Hegemony. He wore a strange crown made of living metal that had tiny tentacles growing from it. The tentacles glowed with bright colors when he was happy or excited. Right now, they were glowing very brightly because he was about to share something very funny with everyone. "Look at this," Kreltos said, his voice somehow reaching every corner of the huge room without him shouting. "We found another backward planet. Ow! The creatures there call it Earth." Above everyone's heads, pictures appeared in the air like magic. The pictures showed humans walking around on Earth, driving cars and going to work. The alien beings looked at these images the same way people might look at animals in a zoo, many light years away on Earth. Dr. Kim Hyeon was working late at the Seoul Space Center. She was one of Earth's best scientists who studied signals from space. For the past few weeks, her giant radio dishes had been picking up strange patterns from the stars. The patterns were too complex and organized to be natural. They had to be made by someone or something intelligent. "Director Park." Kim Hyeon called out to her boss. "You really need to look at this right now." Director Park Tae was an old man who had been studying space for 30 years. He had seen many strange things in his career, but when he looked at Kim Hyeon's computer screen, his face went pale. The signals were unlike anything he had ever seen before. They were clearly made by beings far more advanced than humans. Back on Centauri Prime, the alien council members were having a great time laughing at humanity. They watched videos of human rockets launching into space, rockets that used simple chemical fuel and moved very slowly compared to alien ships that could bend space and time to travel instantly across the galaxy. "Are we really going to waste our time talking to these creatures?" asked Delegate Vorthan. She was made entirely of living crystal, and when she laughed, her body made beautiful musical sounds. They can barely get off their own planet. Other aliens nodded and made their own versions of laughter. Some buzzed, others chimed like bells, and the energy beings pulsed with different colors. To them, humans were like children playing with toy rockets while real adults flew between the stars. But Ambassador Kreltos had a different idea. His crown tentacles glowed even brighter as an evil smile spread across his face, though it wasn't really a face as humans would understand it. "Oh, we will definitely make contact with them," he said slowly. "But not because we respect them or want to be friends. We'll contact them because the galaxy gets boring sometimes, and these humans will provide us with entertainment." The other aliens understood what he meant and laughed even louder. They had done this before with other primitive species. They would show up with their impossible technology, demonstrate how helpless the primitive beings were, and then treat them like pets or zoo animals. It was a cruel game they played whenever they got bored. "Imagine their faces when our ships appear in their sky," said another delegate. "They will probably think we are their gods. Or maybe they will be so scared they will hide underground like worms," added Vorthan, her crystal body chiming with amusement. Back on Earth, Kim Hyun and Director Park worked through the night trying to understand the signals. They had no idea that beings from across the galaxy were already planning to visit Earth, not as friends, but as bullies looking for fun. The signals kept coming, getting stronger every day. Kim Hyun noticed that they seemed to have patterns within patterns, like a code inside another code. Whatever was sending these messages was incredibly smart, maybe smarter than all of humanity put together. "Should we try to send a message back?" Kim Hae-in asked her director. Park Tae thought about it for a long time. "Not yet," he finally said. "We need to understand what we are dealing with first. These beings might not be friendly." He was more right than he knew. High above Earth, invisible alien scouts were already taking pictures and videos of human cities. They were studying human weapons, human technology, and human behavior. But they were not studying these things to understand or help humanity. They were studying them to find the best ways to embarrass and humiliate the human race in front of the entire galaxy. The stage was set for a meeting between two very different kinds of beings. one that thought they were about to meet gods, and another that saw only primitive animals, ready to be turned into entertainment. Neither side could imagine how wrong they were about what was really going to happen. The morning sky over Seoul was clear and blue when suddenly everything changed. A massive ship appeared out of nowhere, floating silently above the city. The ship looked impossible. It had angles and curves that hurt to look at, as if it was folded in ways that should not exist in the real world. People on the streets stopped and pointed up at the sky. Some screamed. Others took pictures with their phones. But before anyone could truly understand what was happening, the same thing occurred in every major city around the world. Giant alien ships appeared over New York, London, Tokyo, Moscow, and dozens of other capitals, all at the same time. President Lee Sang-woo was rushed to the underground command, a center beneath the Blue House. Military generals surrounded him, all talking at once and trying to figure out what to do. On the big screens, they could see their most powerful fighter jets taking off to investigate the alien ships. "Sir, our jets are approaching the vessels now," reported General Kim. "They are requesting permission to engage if necessary." But before the president could respond, something amazing and terrifying happened. The fighter jets simply stopped working. They did not explode or crash, they just became powerless and started gliding down toward the ground like paper airplanes. The alien ships had not fired any weapons or even moved. They had somehow turned off Earth's most advanced military aircraft, with no effort at all. "How is that possible?" whispered President Lee, watching his country's best pilots land their dead planes in emergency fields. At the Seoul Space Center, Dr. Kim Hae-in was watching everything happen on her screens when suddenly a voice spoke inside her head, not through her ears, but directly into her thoughts. "Dr. Kim Hae-in," the voice said calmly, "you will represent your species in discussions with us. Come to the landing site we are preparing." Kim Hae-in looked around the room. Her colleagues were all holding their heads, looking confused and scared. They had all heard the same voice at the same time. Within hours, the alien ships had created landing platforms in major cities around the world. The platforms appeared out of thin air, made of some kind of silver metal that seemed to glow with its own light. When the aliens finally came out of their ships, humans got their first look at the beings who had been laughing about them across the galaxy. Ambassador Kreltos stepped onto the platform in Seoul. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like it was made of liquid mercury. The crown on his head moved like it was alive, with tentacles that glowed different colors. Behind him came other aliens, some that looked like walking crystals, others that seemed to be made of pure light. World leaders from every nation had gathered to meet these visitors. President Lee stood with other presidents, prime ministers, and kings, all hoping to make a good first impression. But Ambassador Kreltos was not interested in making friends. "Humans," he said, and somehow everyone could understand him perfectly even though he was not speaking any human language. "We have come to show you your place in the universe." What happened next made every human feel small and helpless. Kreltos raised one hand, and a tank that had been brought for protection simply fell apart into individual pieces, each piece floating in the air. Then he put it back together again but rearranged it into the shape of a flower. Another alien pointed at a nearby building. The building began to float off the ground like a balloon. A third alien made lightning dance between its fingers, like a pet snake. "You make weapons to hurt each other," Kreltos announced to the speechless human leaders. "You fight over resources when you should be learning to understand the universe. You are like children playing with dangerous toys." Around the galaxy, other aliens were watching this demonstration and having a great time. They had set up what humans might call betting games, wagering on how long it would take for humanity to give up completely and accept their new role as the galaxy's newest pet species. Most aliens thought it would take less than a year. But while world leaders stood in shock and news reporters struggled to describe what they were seeing, Dr. Kim Hae-in was doing something different. She was studying everything very carefully, back in her laboratory. She worked with Dr. Cho Min, a physicist who specialized in energy fields, and Lieutenant Colonel Yoon Dae-hee, an engineer who designed advanced aircraft. Together, they watched Video recordings of the alien demonstrations over and over again. Look at this, Kim Hyun said, pointing to her computer screen. When the alien moved the building, watch how the air around it behaves. There's a pattern here. Dr. Chomin nodded excitedly. And when they took apart the tank, the pieces floated in a specific order. It's not random. There are rules there. Following? Lieutenant Colonel Yoon studied the way the aliens had disabled the fighter jets. They're using some kind of field that interferes with electrical systems, but it has to work in a certain way. If we can figure out the pattern. The aliens thought they were showing off their power to impress and frighten the primitive humans. They had no idea that some humans were not looking at their demonstrations with fear and wonder, but with the eyes of scientists trying to solve puzzles. They think we're too stupid to understand, Dr. Cho said quietly. But they're wrong. They're teaching us exactly how their technology works just by using it in front of us. The aliens' confidence would prove to be their biggest mistake. Years had passed since the aliens first arrived on Earth, to most of the galaxy. Humans were now just another primitive species that needed to be protected like animals in a zoo. Earth had been given the official title of Protected Developmental World, which was just a fancy way of saying that humans were too backward to be trusted with real responsibility. Most humans had accepted this new reality. They went to work, raised their families, and tried not to think too much about the fact that beings from across the galaxy saw them as nothing more than clever pets. The alien ships still floated over major cities, and alien observers walked among humans, studying them like scientists studying insects, but deep underground in secret laboratories around the world. Something amazing was happening that the aliens knew nothing about. Dr. Kim Hyun had been very busy during those 5 years. She now led a team of the smartest humans on Earth, including Dr. Bae Junho, who was an expert in energy manipulation, Commander Na Yoonji, who had been a top military strategist, and Dr. Seo Woo-jin, who understood alien materials better than anyone else on the planet, working in hidden facilities beneath Seoul, Tokyo, and New York. These scientists had been studying every piece of alien technology they could get their hands on. But they were not just copying what the aliens did, they were making it better.
Oh.
Look at this, Dr. Bae said one day, holding up a small device that glowed with soft blue light. The aliens use this to move objects with their minds, but they're doing it the hard way. If we change the energy frequency just a little bit, the device in his hand suddenly became 10 times more powerful. Lifting a heavy table across the room with ease, Dr. Seo Woo-jin had made similar discoveries with alien materials. They build their ships using these crystals, but the crystals can do so much more than they realize. Watch this. Oh. She touched a small crystal fragment, and it began to reshape itself into different forms. First a cube, then a sphere, then a complex geometric shape that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. The breakthrough moment came when news reached Earth about a terrible war happening far away in space. The Kron Armada, a group of aggressive aliens, had attacked the peaceful Melodian colonies without warning. The Melodians were gentle beings who had never hurt anyone, but the Kron were destroying their cities and killing millions of innocent people. The Galactic Council, the same group that had laughed at humans 5 years earlier, watched the massacre with cold indifference. To these ancient, immortal beings, wars like this happened all the time. They saw it as a natural part of life in the galaxy, like storms or earthquakes. But Dr. Kim Hyun and her team saw something different. They saw people who needed help. "We have to do something, Commander," Nahunji said, looking at the terrible images coming from the Melodian worlds. "We can't just sit here and watch genocide happen. Aliens won't help," Dr. Kim Hyun replied. "They think this is normal, so we'll have to help ourselves." In secret shipyards hidden beneath the Earth's oceans, humans had been building vessels. Using their improved alien technology, these ships looked nothing like the crude rockets that had made the aliens laugh 5 years earlier. They were sleek, powerful, and capable of things that should have been impossible. Captain Park Ji-hoon was chosen to lead the rescue mission. He was a former fighter pilot who had spent years studying alien tactics and technology. His crew was made up of the best and brightest humans from around the world. all working together with one goal to save the Melodians. When the human fleet appeared in the Melodian system, entire galaxy was watching, but nobody expected. What happened next? The human ships moved in ways that even the oldest alien civilizations could not understand. They appeared and disappeared instantly, traveling faster than light in a completely new way. But more amazing than their speed was their precision. Instead of destroying the Kron ships, the humans disabled them carefully. Every shot was perfectly aimed to shut down weapons and engines without killing anyone. While they fought other human ships began rebuilding the damaged Melodian cities in real time, using technology that seemed to create matter out of nothing. Target only their weapon systems, Captain Park commanded from his ship's bridge. We're here to stop the violence, not create more of it. And deploy the construction drones. Those civilians need shelter now. The Kron Armada, which had been terrorizing the galaxy for centuries, found itself completely helpless against these new human tactics. Their ships were disabled so quickly and efficiently that they barely had time to understand what was happening. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched in stunned silence. Ambassador Kreltos, who had laughed at human rockets just 5 years earlier, now stared at his screens in horror and disbelief. "This is impossible," he whispered, his crown, tentacles flickering with fear.
Okay.
"They're using principles that took us millions of years to develop, but somehow they're doing it better than we ever could." Back on Earth, Dr. Kim Hyun watched the successful rescue mission with quiet satisfaction. Several alien observers stood beside her, their faces showing confusion and shock. "How did you do this?" one of them asked. "You were supposed to be primitive. You were supposed to be learning from us." Dr. Kim Hyun smiled. "We were learning from you," she said calmly. "But you misunderstood what learning means. You thought we would just copy what you showed us. Instead, we used what you taught us to create something completely new. The galaxy would never be the same again." The news of what humans had done at the Melodian colonies spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within days, every alien civilization knew that the species they had laughed at just 5 years ago had somehow become more advanced than civilizations that had existed for millions of years. Ancient alien empires that had ruled the galaxy since, before Earth's sun was born, suddenly found themselves with a big problem. Their most powerful weapons and fastest ships now seemed like toys compared to what humans could build. It was like discovering that a group of children playing with sticks had somehow invented laser guns while no one was watching. The effects were immediate and shocking. Alien species that had been part of the Galactic Council for thousands of years began to leave and ask if they could join the humans instead. They called this new group the Terran Cooperative, and it was very different from the old council. The Galactic Council had always worked like a pyramid, with the most powerful aliens at the top telling everyone else what to do. But the Terran Cooperative was different. Humans offered real partnership to anyone who wanted to learn and contribute. Instead of serving masters, aliens could work as equals alongside humans. Ambassador Kreltos watched his own empire fall apart as world after world left to join the humans. Planets that had obeyed the hegemony for centuries were now packing up and switching sides. His mighty war fleet, which had once terrorized 3 entire sections of the galaxy, now looked pathetic next to the ships that Dr. Lim So-young's engineering teams were building for the humans. "How is this happening?" Kreltos asked his advisors, his crown tentacles dim with worry. "We ruled them. They were nothing but primitive animals." But his advisors had no answers. Some of them were secretly thinking about joining the humans too. The final breaking point came when the most powerful beings in the galaxy decided they had seen enough. The Transcendent Collective was a group of creatures made of pure energy, who thought of themselves as the closest thing to gods that existed anywhere. They had no physical bodies. They were living thoughts and emotions that could reshape reality with their minds. These energy beings had watched the rise of humanity with growing anger. How dare these tiny, short-lived creatures disrupt the order that had existed for millions of years? The Transcendents had been around since the galaxy was young, and they were not going to let a bunch of newcomers ruin everything. "The humans must be corrected," declared Overseer Zarthos, the most powerful of the Transcendents. His energy form blazed with righteous fury. We will show them what real power looks like. The Transcendent Collective gathered their forces and prepared to attack Earth directly. They were beings of pure thought and energy. They could travel instantly across space. They could turn matter into energy with a thought, and they had never been defeated in battle. What could primitive humans possibly do against gods? The attack began on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. The Transcendents appeared in Earth's solar system like blazing stars. Their energy formed so bright they could be seen from the planet's surface even during the day. They expected the humans to surrender immediately when they realized who they were facing. Instead, something happened that the Transcendents had never experienced before in their millions of years of existence. Humans hurt them. Dr. Bae Jun-ho had spent years studying something that most aliens didn't even know existed, the science of consciousness itself. While other humans were learning to build better ships and weapons, his team had been figuring out how thoughts and emotions actually worked at the deepest level of reality. Energy beings think they're untouchable because they don't have physical bodies. Dr. Bae explained to Colonel Yoon Dahi as she prepared Earth's defenses. But consciousness is still made of something. It follows rules. And if it follows rules, we can affect it. Colonel Yoon commanded the defense fleet from her flagship. But her ships didn't carry normal weapons. Instead, they had devices that could attack ideas themselves, weapons that could shoot doubt, fear, and confusion directly into the minds of thinking beings. The battle lasted exactly 17 minutes. The Transcendents discovered that all their power meant nothing against weapons designed to attack the very concept of hostility. For the first time in their existence, these godlike beings felt emotions they had never experienced before: doubt, fear, empathy, and something completely new to them: the ability to question whether they might be wrong. Overseer Zarthos found himself floating helplessly in space, his energy form flickering weakly as unfamiliar thoughts filled his consciousness. For millions of years, he'd been absolutely certain of his superiority. Now suddenly, he could see things from other perspectives, could feel what it was like to be small and afraid, could understand what he had done to countless other species over the eons. "This is impossible," he whispered, his voice weak. "And confused, we are gods. You were nothing. We're less than insects." Dr. Kim Hyun, who now held the title of Earth's first speaker, looked at the defeated energy being with something that might have been pity. She stood on the bridge of the human command ship, surrounded by technology that had seemed impossible just years before. "You're right that we were small," she said gently. "But you made one big mistake. We were never nothing. We were students. And you never bothered to ask what we were studying." The galaxy had new teachers now, and the old gods were learning what it meant to be humble. The galaxy had found a new balance with humans leading the way. But the universe was not done testing everyone yet. From the empty darkness between galaxies, something terrible was waking up. These creatures were called the Devourers. They were older than almost anything else in the universe. The Devourers were not like any enemy the galaxy had ever faced before. They did not just destroy planets or kill people. They consumed the very idea of existence itself. When they touched something, it did not just die or break apart. It stopped having ever existed at all, as if it had never been real in the first place. These ancient beings had been sleeping for billions of years in the cold void between galaxies. But now they were awake and they were hungry. The great powers of the galaxy tried to fight them, but it was hopeless. The Galactic Council sent their mightiest battle fleets against the Devourers, but the ships simply vanished as if they had never been built. The Transcendent Collective, those godlike energy beings who had recently been humbled by humanity, tried to use their power against the Devourers. But their energy forms were drained away into nothingness. Even the machine intelligences of the core worlds, artificial beings made of pure logic and computer code, found that their existence was simply erased when the Devourers passed by. Nothing could stand against these ancient horrors. One by one, entire civilizations disappeared. Not destroyed, just gone, as if they had never existed at all. Ambassador Kreltos, who had once been so proud and powerful, now flew through space in a broken refugee ship. His beautiful crown was dim and lifeless, and his clothes were torn and dirty. Round him crowded the last survivors of dozens of civilizations that had once ruled the galaxy. Beings who had thought themselves mighty and eternal. Now reduced to frightened refugees, they all had the same destination: Earth. When Kreltos arrived at the Sol Command Center, he looked nothing like the arrogant ambassador who had mocked humanity just years before. Stumbled off his ship, fell to his knees in front of Dr. Kim Hyun, and began to cry. "Please," he whispered, his voice broken with desperation. "We were wrong about everything. We were so terribly wrong. You have to help us. You're the only ones left who might be able to stop them." Dr. Kim Hyun looked down at the being who had once treated her species like zoo animals. But she was not angry. There was no time for anger when the entire universe was in danger. But instead of preparing for war like everyone expected, the humans did something completely different. Dr. Park Soman, who had been studying the Devourers since they first appeared, made an amazing discovery. "They're not evil destroyers," she announced to the human command staff. "They're sick. They're an ancient species that went insane from being alone in the darkness for too long. They're consuming everything because they're trying to fill an emptiness inside themselves that can never be filled that way." Captain Lee Min-ho was chosen to lead the mission to face the Devourers, but his ship was not equipped with weapons. Instead, Dr. Cho Min had built something called a consciousness restoration matrix, a device designed to heal damaged minds rather than destroy enemies. When the human fleet approached the lead Devourer, everyone in the galaxy watched and waited for another hopeless battle. The Devourer was enormous, bigger than entire star systems, and it radiated an emptiness that made reality itself feel weak and uncertain. But the humans did not attack. Instead, they surrounded the ancient being and began to broadcast something: incredible memories of friendship, love, hope, and connection. They showed the Devourer what it had forgotten during its billions of years alone in the dark void. What happened next was beyond anything anyone had imagined possible. The Devourer stopped moving. For the first time in eons, it remembered what it had been before the loneliness drove it mad. It remembered having friends, having a home, having a purpose other than endless hunger. The ancient being began to weep. Its tears were made of crystallized space-time itself, and as they fell, all the matter and energy it had consumed over the billions of years began to pour back into reality. Entire civilizations that had been erased were suddenly real again. Stars that had been devoured blazed back to life. Across the galaxy, the other Devourers felt their leader's transformation and began to remember as well. One by one, they stopped their destruction and began the long, difficult work of undoing the damage they had caused during their madness. In the months that followed, the galaxy rebuilt itself under human guidance, but it was a very different galaxy now. The old systems of powerful civilizations ruling over weaker ones were gone. Instead, everyone worked together as equals, following the principles that humans had established: cooperation instead of domination, understanding instead of conquest, hope instead of despair. Ambassador Kreltos found himself working as Earth's cultural liaison, helping other species learn these new ways of thinking. During a quiet moment in Dr. Kim Hyun's office in Seoul, he asked the question that had been bothering him for months. "How did you know?" he said. "How did you see what they really were when the rest of us only saw destroyers?" Dr. Kim Hyun smiled and looked out the window at the stars, where human and alien ships worked side by side to heal the galaxy's remaining wounds. "You always looked at problems and saw enemies to fight or obstacles to overcome," she said gently. "We looked at problems and saw puzzles that needed solving. The Devourers weren't evil. They were patients who needed healing. The universe had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the greatest power comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to heal and build."